know, there is no separation. There is, you know, ultimately the borders are ridiculous, you know. They really don't matter that much. You know, the real question is about people. The real question is, are we caring for the people, and what can we do? Or are we destroying the people? That's another side of it. You know, are the things that we're doing destroying people as well? Because some places we are destroying people. You know, so we also have to be aware of that. So, anyways, these are some of the Sufi teachings which are about that type of relationship. But all the Sufi teachings are based on the prophetic teachings. And the prophetic teachings are based on Abraham and Moses and Jesus and Muhammad, and really there's no difference. People make differences, but there's really no difference. It's the same teaching, with, you know, little variations based on the people of the time who they were teaching to. But other than that, the principles are the same. The principles of the teachings are identical. So we have to be bigger ourselves. We're in the time of Google. You know, there's no longer, you know what I mean? Nobody's hiding out. Like, you know, people, you go to, where was that? You know, there's people, I watched some show where they were training hawks. What was that movie about the hawk trainer and the girl who became the first hawk trainer? What was that? A fabulous movie. And they're up in the middle of the mountains, and the Caucasus Mountains, I think it was, which God knows where those are. And here she has a computer and she's on Google. You know, I mean, there's some, you know, this old tribe in the middle of the Caucasus Mountains, which are up by Turkmenistan or something, you know, in the middle of nowhere, you know, and there she's got a computer and she's on Google. I mean, there's no, you know what I mean? There's no walls. The walls are down, so we have to go beyond that. So that's why I say we have to become global people. And global people means recognizing that all people are jewels. And global people means recognizing that all religions lead back to God. And global people realizing at the end of the day that the only true refuge is in God. You know, if we can come out with those three basic pieces, we probably will do very well here in our lives. We'll do very well. You know, there will be a lot of safety. A lot of safety. People, if you have that, if you treat others with respect, you'll be treated with respect. You know, in other words, if you respect others, they will respect you. If you respect others, others respect you. That's been my personal experience again and again and again. If I'm in respect, people respect me. If I'm disrespectful, they disrespect me. Right? So respect is a very important thing. It starts from us. That, you know, we have to be the holders of respect in ourselves. What does respect mean? It means speaking in the right way with people. It means not putting them down and not judging them. It means honoring people. I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's your garbage man outside, or it's your priest, or your rabbi, or it's the Syrian refugee, or it's the guy coming up from the border, or it's your border guard. I don't really care. You know, but there's a question of, are you respecting? I find, for me, when I, you know, respect people, you know, we had at one point the FBI came out at one point, were talking with us, and I found that simply by being respectful to them, they were respectful of me. And if I had been disrespectful, they would have been disrespectful. You know, all across the board, are we respectful in our speech? And it's more than just speech. It's our energy, it's our feeling. In other words, are you respecting people in your heart? Are you holding them with compassion? Are you holding them with care? Or are you holding them with disdain, in the sense that you can do whatever you want, and you can judge them and put them down and make them wrong and make them little? That's what respect is about. Right? So the first thing is about respect. And that's when I say seeing people as a jewel, because if you really saw that everybody was a jewel, you'd respect them. The second piece is this piece about global, religion. Religion, unfortunately, has probably been the #1 cause of warfare on our planet. This planet has destroyed itself on the basis of religion. And the truth is that all religions are trying to get back to God. So how can we hold it in a way that doesn't kill each other, but respects each other as we're all learning how to get back to God? You see, we have to find a way to do that. In the West, West is a Christian country. This is a Christian country. For Muslims, this is a scary place today. The Muslims are having to deal with being an oppressed people within a Christian culture. But that's nothing new, because the Jews have been going through that for many years. They're very familiar with that. Okay. However, if you go to Jerusalem, you got the exact opposite. Now you've got the Muslims being oppressed by the Jews. And there are places where the Christians are being oppressed by the Muslims, and so everybody is in a way, we have to come into respect with each other, and really respect the religions, but we also have to seek the truth. We have to really look for truth in these religions and find out where things have been changed. That's a very, very important piece of understanding. So even if we just do these two things. But the final piece is this piece about refuge up here, which is, can you all really, do you know God? Remember what I said? What is God? Do you know what God is? And I'm not talking about in your intellect. I'm talking about in your hearts. Do you know what is the light of God? Do you know what is the voice of God? Do you know what is the teachings of God? Do you know when God speaks to you? Do you know when God is communicating to you? Are you able to understand how God communicates to you? Do you know how to surrender to that communication? Can you bow to that communication in those 4 stages? That's what I'm speaking about. When I say, do you know God? I don't mean, oh yeah, I know God exists and he sits up on a cloud. No, not that one. But the sense of what I just spoke about, that's what's really needed. You have to really know those things. And then, then after that, now you can put in your religion. Okay, in other words, if you're a Christian and you don't know what God is, you're not a Christian. If you're a Muslim and you don't know what the light of God is, you're not a Muslim. If you're a Jew and you don't know what the light of God is, you're not really a Jew. You see what I'm saying? How could you be those things in your religion if you don't know what God even is? You're following a dogma, and you don't know what it is. You have to know what God is. Then, you really know what Allah is, then you really are a Muslim. Because now, what Muslim means one who surrenders to God. If you know what God is and you really surrender, then you're really a Muslim. A Jew, what is Jew really? An Israel, what's an Israel? One who surrenders to God. It's one who turns to God. That's what the Israelis were really, what Israel was. It's one of God, one who's turned to God. Okay? In the same way with Christians. So this is why I say you've got to know this piece first. And this piece here about knowing God is something that you have to discover in your heart. This is a heart piece. It's living inside of your heart. You have to find this yourself. You have to know what God is in your heart. You have to love God. You have to surrender to God. You have to turn to God. And it's something that happens inside of you. It's something in you. And it's not a, what do you call it, a compulsion. It's not like you have to beat yourself to know God. It's a dance of love. Your relationship to God is a dance of love. When you're with God, you are in love with God, because God is love, is the love. If you're not in love with God, you haven't really known God. God is love. God is care. God is the most beautiful thing in existence. You need to love that God, not beat yourself up because you're not following God perfectly. That's what a lot of people do. They don't do it exactly right, or, they beat themselves up. But the minute you beat yourselves up, God becomes your jailer. then you're afraid of God. And there is some value to being afraid of God because you want to be evil, but you haven't really had the relationship that you need with God. The relationship with God is a love affair. The relationship with God is you are in love with God because God is El Wadud. God is the love. You're in love with God. That's the real relationship with God. It's a state of love. Okay. So the first thing is to know what God is, meaning to know what the light of God is, and recognize what that light is. And the second stage is really to be in love with that light. That you're in love with it. It's not that you can be afraid of God, because in some ways you should be. But in other ways, it's an absolute state of love. It's kind of like if you're married and you're in love with your wife or your husband, you absolutely love them, right? You are. If you really are in love with your husband or wife, you love them. But there is fear, right? What's the fear? They might leave. They might die. Something might happen that would destroy that relationship, right? And so if you really are in love with somebody, sometimes there's also, you notice that there's also a place of fear, because you're afraid that something could damage that relationship, you see? And if you've had the love and you've had it damaged, you realize what you've lost, and all you want is to get it back. More than anything in the world is you want that love back. Well, when you have the relationship with God in love, it's the same thing. That once you have this, the relationship is so strong that it is the most precious thing in the world. There's nothing more valuable than this relationship. And the fear is that you might lose it. Once you have it, the fear is you might lose it. And there are ways to lose it. How do you lose it? By being unloving, by being disrespectful, by being arrogant, by being, just doing things that hurt other people. That's how you lose it. So this is the very important piece, is this really developing the state of deep love for God. In Sufism, this relationship right here is the centerpiece. In my understanding, and certainly in my opinion, and certainly what I've understood about Sufism, this is the central piece of Sufism right here. To know God and to be in love with God. To know God and to be in love with God. Each moment, each second. And then everything else in creation comes out of it. Everything else in creation comes out of it. So you're absolutely in love with God. Now you go to work, right? What are you going to do when you go to work? Well, you're not just working. You're working out of your love for God. In other words, everything, if I'm in love with God and I'm making food, do I make the food full of beauty, full of health, full of goodness? Or do I make the food, busy thinking about other things, and I'm throwing it together and there's no love in the food, and who cares what's in the food? That's not from the love of God, right? So every single thing you do is moving in that love. It's always in that love. Whatever you do, you follow that love. Okay, so that's the second piece, is this love now begins to reveal itself in every aspect of your life. So I don't care, you can be doing your sweat lodges out there, and you can do that sweat lodge from a place of just beating the heck out of yourself when you're doing the sweat lodge, hoping you're going to, purify something or have a vision or whatever you're trying to do. Or you can be in that sweat lodge in such a state of devotion and love that what happens in that sweat lodge will be the most profoundly holy thing that could happen. Right? You can do your Sundance and you can be hanging up there, dealing with the pain, or you can be hanging up there surrendering into the nature of God itself, and God will open up visions beyond anything that you ever had before. It's up to you, because it has to do with your state of surrender. Okay, so these states here. And then the third thing you want to do is understand the last piece here, which is, what does God ask of us in relationship to society and ourselves? In other words, does God want us to relate to society in some way? Does God want us to relate to ourselves in some way? And by the way, how do we relate to God also? The state of relationships. Okay, and this is the final piece of the teaching of Sufism, is knowing when you're in this love with God so deeply, and you're surrendering to God each moment, how does God want you to be with God? Is there a way that God wants you to be with God? And the answer is yes. There is a way. And that way is, you could say, we say with the deep adab. Adab means politeness. That you're incredibly polite with God. That you're incredibly respectful to God. Like I hear people say, I asked God for this. But it's kind of like, well, who are you to ask God that way? You know, in other words, you should be saying, I hope that God, in God's mercy, would give this to me. Not, I asked God and God didn't do it. It's like, it's disrespectful. It's a very deep state of disrespect with God. You have to ask God in a very, if you want God to do something for you, my kids come to me and they say, Dad, I demand you give me the car this weekend, and you better take me up there. You know what I'm going to say. Because they've been very disrespectful to me, and they're asking me for something, and I'm like, okay, well, you can ask what you want. But you're not going to get that, because when you ask me disrespectfully, you break the core relationship, which is I'm your father. If you want my help, you have to be respectful to me. Now come to me, they think about it, and an hour later, Dad, I'm so sorry that I asked you like that. I really want to go to my friend's house this weekend. Could you please give me the car? Could you please at least take me up there to St. Helena so I can visit my friend? Of course, and they ask me like that, what am I going to say? What can I say? But, of course, I'll do it. So, it's all, God's no different than that. You have to ask yourself in that same way. You have to really ask God with adab. You have to ask God with that deepest level of respect of how you do things. So this is something we can practice a little bit today, but this nature of relationship with adab is, I think, the key. The Prophet said that adab was the key to his teachings. That the nature of politeness was the key to his teachings. But really, it's the nature of politeness to God. It's really about